Hello and welcome to Just In. I'm your host, Adriana Lamar, here as usual with Sammy Wells and Tommy Scott. It was a great weekend for football, and actually, great may not be the best word. However, it was a very high scoring weekend of football. On the other side of that, however, we had about 1,000 missed field goals, and that's just, there's not really any one particular game that contributed to that number.
There's
Uh,
several in fact.
yeah. There was a number of games. So we'll talk about that. Starting with the 49ers and the Cardinals right when we get back. Of course, before we drop, go ahead and drop and hit that like and subscribe button, and we will be back in just one moment. All right, San Francisco 49ers and the Cardinals. The Niners had a tough weekend with some injuries and so on. So Tommy, I'm gonna let you take it off.
Well, this is one of those where I want to say this. There was, obviously we had, young quarterback, rookie quarter. Well, no, just a flat out young quarterback plan, and there were some young quarterback mistakes. But my opinion, this one is on Shanahan for being overly aggressive. There were several opportunities in this game to basically go ahead and kick the field goal, and he went for it on fourth down. They were, I think, 1 of 5, 1 of 6 on fourth down. Um, and you kick those field goals, you play a different game. You're potentially in a spot where you're either down by one or up by two, and instead of going for it back to back in the midfield and not getting fourth down and basically handing the game over at that point, you put yourself in an opportunity. But like I said, for those of us that have felt that the answer to the 49ers' tragic offensive woes was a young quarterback.
Wait, those of us, who
Uh,
might that be?
who that might be, I don't know. I don't know who that would be. I'm not saying names,
Wasn't there
but
some sort of prediction that there would be like a magical pill if a certain quarterback was placed into the game?
yes, no, there was no magical pill that happened almost, and unfortunately, the sad part is with him sustaining the sprained knee injury. It's pretty much exactly like I said, where what happened when we put I don't know, Alex Smith in, and it was like, here, Alex, go do this, fend to the wolves. Oh, you got hurt. This is one of those ones where you don't make a career out of running around for too long in the NFL as a quarterback. It doesn't work out very well. Ask the Giants quarterback. He learned the hard way that you do not challenge, the defensive guys. Every last one of them will cause you a little bit of pain. And stumble. He tried to walk it off, but we'll get to that later. But the defense played great. I thought. It's hard to keep that team. It's the Cardinals, one of the best teams in the NFL right now. The only, or one of the, I think they're the only undefeated team left. So it's like they're in that spot where they played well. They lost by a touchdown. Um, they had their own mistakes to deal with, and they're going to continue having them. They get a nice little bye week here coming up, so hopefully they can get some healthy guys back. But with Kittle out for at least another 2 or 3 weeks at a minimum, that's a huge blow for an offense that right now it's like they've got Debo Samuel, but they just they're still missing that down the field threat. Makes it easier when you have Kittle and Samuel on the field at the same time. But without that, they're going to have to kind of dig into the playbook. They also going to have to get more comfortable running the ball one way or the other. You got to figure out how to do that because you can't run the ball. You can't expect your quarterback to run down the field every time you get. But I will say this one for Lance. You're a young quarterback. When it's the beginning of the game and it's second down and 10, first down and 10, it's nothing. There's no pressure here. I don't care who's down the field. If you got 15 yards in front of you, go just take the 15. Just run and go get it at that point in the game. Don't throw a stupid interception because you're trying to squeeze one in there for no damn reason. So, but he'll learn. He'll get there. That's the good news. Um, I don't know. The best you can get out of this for 49ers, you got a moral victory out of it. Doesn't mean a whole lot. It's like, great, you're 2-3 now. So, but long season, they still got time to try and figure it out, see what happens. But their struggle is going to be the slow starts, the basically the mental pauses, and then just the, shall we say, the interesting play calling, which isn't just the 49ers. There were other teams that decided to do crafty, weird stuff, and it costs them. Sometimes I get it. Offensive coordinators are super smart. They know all this stuff. So are the guys, the head coaches. Sometimes you just got to line up and play football.
Sam, you're like busting at the seams, so I'm gonna pass the baton to you.
All right, all right. Listen,
I haven't seen you
you
this
know,
giddy since the last Cowboys win. It's almost like you
I
take
was just
personal pleasure in this loss, even though this was predicted by Tommy the last time we talked. So
okay. Well, I will take the fault of saying that yes, I told Trey Lance to them to pin Trey Lance, but you know what?
I shouldn't have
Honestly,
listened to you.
his performance, for his performance, how he played just like a rookie, but he actually did a decent job. He did a decent job. He was not
Oh,
terrible.
definitely.
He
No,
was not
definitely not
terrible.
terrible. Not
He was not
not in
terrible,
the least.
anything like that. So I would just say that hey, if he gets to start next week, because I don't know if Jimmy is off the injury list or anything else like that, I think he'll do way better, and 49ers may come out with a win. Okay. Um, I was really shocked that the you know that the Cardinals offense was even able to score on your defense because I mean honestly when I look at the defense of 49ers I just see a shutdown defense. I see an experienced defense with that could have been able to shut down. I would thought you guys would be able to shut down um, Murray, but you know he prevailed, and I mean, you can't we can't blame this. We can't say that the 49ers wouldn't have beat them because they didn't have all their men. They did have injuries. They did have Kittles, which Kittle is a huge contributor to their offense. So
Hmm.
they were missing their bread and butter, and the quarterback did not have it. So would Trey Lance would have done different if he had Kittle? I would think so. Can we say that the 49ers would have won that game if Kittle was playing? You know,
I mean, I
I
think
can I can make the
historically,
argument. I can make the argument that that they would have beat the Cardinals if Kittle was playing, but I would say
But
this. People
just
can
for
blame Shanahan.
clarify one
Okay,
thing,
but
just to give credit where
one
credit's
thing,
due.
but one
No, no,
thing,
credit.
one
Wait,
thing, but
credit
one
where
thing,
credit is
but one
due.
thing. I'm gonna say one thing, and I'm
Kyler
gonna say one
Murray,
thing. I'm
sixth in
gonna
the
say one
NFL
thing, and I'm gonna
with
let you go.
yards. He's
I'm
tied
gonna
for
say one
10th
thing and let you
with
go.
or ninth with
But
touchdowns,
I would
and
just
he's
say
got the
that
third best
Shanahan.
quarterback rating. That's your
we're
that's the
hearing
guy who
we're
gets shut
hearing
down. Just FYI.
9:30 at this point.
Okay, but
That's when he gets shut down.
I would just say that Shanahan. I mean, you can blame it on Shanahan, but honestly, it's the first game. Let the rookie quarterback get his feet wet or whatever, and even next week maybe hopefully he's gonna come through and do a better job. But he did not play terrible. He played decent.
He played decent. He just did not get much. Like take some of those like the fourth down and goal situation where you're going to have two plays. Keep in mind, all game you've basically been able to have some level of success on the ground because they were able to run the ball. Was it like super outstanding? No, but they were able to do it, and that's the key part, right? You go
Mm-hmm.
down there and you're like, okay, let's do a fancy trick play, and we're gonna try to throw the ball. Okay, well now let's run it. Okay, let's now do a fancy little stupid trick play. Oh, it didn't work. Now instead of taking the field goal because it's fourth down and whatever, we'll do this. And you're in a situation. Here's the thing: we all saw Lance get stopped short of the goal line, right? Uh,
Yes.
we saw that. Now, if that is I don't know another quarterback that's been around for longer, you wouldn't happen to know one, would you, Sam? He was hurt last year, had some issues, but then he's back now. You remember him
Yeah.
at all? Now, if he's running to the corner, does he stop short and try to go head to head with a defender, or does he run straight for that corner because he knows all he's got to get to do is put that slight tip of the ball right past the corner? If Trey Lance continues running to the corner and goes low for one, because you're going to get closer to the ground, he scores that touchdown like 10 out of 10 times. Where he came in was just that young mindset of, I'm going to run this guy over because that's what he did in college. He's forgetting that the best guys that he played against in college are now the worst guys that he's going to play against in the NFL.
Or didn't
And
make it.
yeah, or didn't make it all. And that's one of those situations where, as a head coach, and this is the thing, as you said, this is a learning curve, right? Like you don't get to see too many quarterbacks come out and be there. It's my first year. I'm going to be amazing, right? That's a very rare situation.
Except Dak.
Yeah, except for Dak. But in that situation, if you're a head coach, you look at some of what's going on, you get the feel for it. You either line up and run the ball, right? Or if you're going to take the little shots throwing the ball and it doesn't work out, you're basically in a spot where now it's like you need to start thinking, especially early in the game, you start thinking about put the points on the board. The Niners played this game like they were down by 2 scores the entire game, and even when they weren't. And so because they played that way, they took unnecessary risk and eventually were down by the 2 scores. When if they'd have just kept plugging away, it's like it's a game of inches. You got to get this inch, get the next inch. They got to stop trying to chop down the tree with one swing. It's like a field goal is okay. We've seen plenty of teams go in there and they're like, all they're doing is kicking field goals. And at the end of the game, you're like, well, dang, those 5 field goals still added up to 15 points. The other team only scored 10, so you won. Now that's not exciting, but it's still a win.
And I'll say too, when you look at the stats, the Niners played either evenly or better than the Cardinals basically the entire game, with one exception, and that is getting points on the board, which really, we get back to your original point, Tommy. This is a game of execution. You're doing everything right except for the last things you need to do to put points on the board. You have 30 more total yards. You have almost twice the rushing yards, and yet you're behind by 7 points. And like you said, those couple of field goals that you missed, that's the game right there. You only needed 7 more points. So yeah, I totally agree. It's like, stop going for the universe when you just need to reach the moon. Like it's not that hard.
And they had that same problem last week against Seattle. They had a ton of yards, able to do whatever you want, put 0 points on the board. And it's very hard to win football games when you don't score, it turns out. I didn't know that. I learned that recently.
Yeah.
But it's who I didn't know. I just didn't know. But yeah, no, you're right. And the thing is that, just remember, one aspect of the game impacts the other. If the Niners, they had 3 shots to kick field goals. Let's say they only took the 2 of them, they get those 2 field goals. It's a bad weekend for field goals, so maybe that was it.
Yeah, maybe that was
knew that it was a bad weekend for field goals and said, we ain't even going to play the game. That could be it. But you get those 2 field goals. Now, all of a sudden, when you're basically fourth down in the middle of the field, feeling you have to go for it, now you don't. Now you can punt and try and pin them deep and make them work their way all the way down the field to score. And with your defense playing the way it was, you're no longer in a spot where that huge big play, especially given the fact that, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Murray's arm, even when he threw that up, that was just a throw it down the field and hopefully somebody gets it, right? Because his arm was hurting. And it's like, you pin him back, make him work for it. But because you didn't, you as you said, you're shooting for the sun. Now you got to take the chance. You put your defense in a tough spot. And I'm sorry, your defense came up basically every time for you except for once. That's pretty good. And then in the NFL, it's like and especially when you don't have, you have a very solid defense. Your secondary still struggles, but you're solid. But it's not, some of the legacy defenses you've seen from the Cowboys in the '90s, and even the Niner defenses under Harbaugh. This ain't those units, at least not yet. So
are you saying they're missing Richard Sherman?
Oh, I said that when they didn't want to bring him back. It was like, you have no replacement for
I
it.
understand that decision myself.
I mean, it's one of those, like, you got to move on. He's old, whatever. But it's like, mentally, he still knows more about this than basically every other DB they got on the field, and he's in a spot where he can still play based on using his brain. It's like, yes, you don't want to match him up against their speed demon. Like, okay, that's fine, but most of the guys on your defense, you don't want to match them up against your speed demon either. So why you would let that. I mean, there's so much knowledge and so much value and experience there. Like, why you would let that go? Um, yeah, beyond me. That's one of those like I couldn't believe it when Seattle let him go, and even more so when the Niners did. It was like I didn't see that going where the way they wanted it to.
All right, well, let's pivot now. We'll take a quick break and come back and talk about Sam's favorite subject, the Cowboys losing, winning to the Giants. All right.
Hating, just hating.
Hit the like and subscribe, and we'll be right back.